Welcome to Parsha Hashavua with Rabbi Garari. This week's Parsha is Parsha Eikev. So there's a very famous pasuk at the beginning where Hashem promises the reward for keeping Torah and mitzvahs, and he uses an unusual language, and there's so many interpretations on this language, and we're going to try and give and share just a few insights. So the pasuk, of course, famously says, "V'hoya Eikev tishmon," which simply means because you will listen Eis hamishpatim ha'ele to these laws, you will guard them and do them. So then, v'shamar Hashem alekecha, Hashem your God will keep the covenant and the kindness that He swore to your forefathers, and He'll love you and bless you and give you all the blessings as it enumerates in this parsha. And of course, all the Mefarshim start with the concept of what does this word Eikev mean? Now, we do find Eikev means because, but there are other lashonos, there are other expressions that can be used for that. So what does it actually mean? So I'm going to share with you 4 short ideas. The very simple pshat in the pasuk, this is the first idea, is the word Eikev means consequence. In other words, what happens because of this. So the pasuk just means, and there's a few psukim to back this up in Tanakh and so on, but the simple meaning is v'hoya, it will come to be, Eikev tishmon, the consequence of you listening. In other words, because you will listen. What is the consequence of you listening to all of Torah and mitzvahs, which Moshe Rabbeinu is busy encouraging all the Jews to keep, particularly as they go into Eretz Yisrael? And then the consequence will be that Hashem will bless you and Hashem will give you all the kindness that He has promised. Rashi has a different pshat. Rashi says that V'hoya Eikev tishmon, why does he use the word Eikev specifically? Because we're talking about specific kinds of mitzvahs. Rashi says, "Ima mitzvahs hakalois she'odom dosh ba'akevav tishmon." Hashem says the special reward will come because you will keep certain kinds of mitzvahs. Those are the mitzvahs that people think are very not so significant or not so strict or not so severe, and these are the mitzvahs that people tend to trample upon them with their heel. Dosh ba'akevav. We know that the word Eikev means heel. So heel comes from an expression of trampling on something with your heel. And every generation there are those mitzvahs that people just for some reason don't think are important. They just do it because everyone does it, or because it's too hard not to keep, or they think it's not so strict. Whatever the case is, whatever the pshat in Rashi is, people just minimize their importance. They don't take notice of them. Says the Torah, if it's those mitzvahs that you're going to keep, you'll take note of those mitzvahs that people are trampling on, and you'll make sure to keep them. Eikev tishmon, that will be the source of your reward from Hashem. That's the second idea. A third concept is, as brought down in various Sfarim, that Eikev comes from the word heel, but it also is part of the expression of Ikvased de Mashiach. Ikvased de Mashiach means the generations just before Mashiach, as we are the heel, meaning the end of Golus just before Mashiach comes. And we know that the end of Golus, and this is a very relevant idea, can be very dark, distorted values, confusion, darkness, and it's difficult to keep those mitzvahs, to keep mitzvahs and to learn Torah during this time. We are not on such a madrega, we are not on such a level like the previous generations. We are on a lower level, as we know. And yet Hashem says, if you will keep the mitzvah specifically, then Hashem will reward you. And this is tied in to a very interesting idea, which is brought in Chassidus, that we know that in the Parshas Ba'aloischa we read a number of weeks ago, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu was the most humble person. And over there also we have this idea, what does it mean that Moshe Rabbeinu was so humble? Didn't he know that he was the greatest prophet? So many different interpretations. One of the interpretations that it's given is based on a medrash that Moshe Rabbeinu was shown by Hashem a vision of all the generations. And he saw the generations before Mashiach, our generations. And he saw how low the divine consciousness is going to be, how dark it will be, how low the madrega, the level will be. And yet he saw that people are still clinging on and hanging on to mitzvahs. They're still learning Torah, they're still going to Shiurim, they're still keeping Shulchan Aruch, they're still doing mitzvahs despite the difficulty and the lack of revelation and the lack of consciousness and so on and so forth. Moshe Rabbeinu felt humble. He felt humble even though he knew he was the greatest, but he was the greatest in a generation where there was a revelation of Sinai. He spoke to Hashem face to face, so to speak. He was in communication with Hashem. He was in a very much higher madrega. And when he saw the generations that don't have that level, the generations just before Mashiach, where the darkness is strong, and he saw them keeping mitzvahs, he felt humble. So that's the pasuk, Parsha Eikev Tishma'un. If you listen to Hashem in the Eikev, in the heel of time, which is the Ikvus of the Mashiach, Hashem will give us a special reward. And then, number 4, there's an insight which I saw in the Sorry Alofim, which I've quoted many times, and explains the following. And based on this insight, he explains also a medrash, brought in Rashi. It says like this, that Yaakov means Eikev, the heel. What is the heel? The heel is the lowest point. And what it references is that when you serve Hashem, the concept of Eikev means that you're just beginning. You haven't even scratched the surface. You are good, you're beginning, you're serving Hashem, but you know there's so much more to climb. There's so much more to achieve. That's the midah of Yaakov. Yaakov, when he was born, he was called Yaakov because that's the midah, that's the character trait of Yaakov. This is so much different to Esav, because Esav means osui, it is already done, I'm arrived. Now, in Yiddishkeit, we don't have that concept of I'm arrived. In Yiddishkeit, we always have to have the perspective that we haven't arrived, we've just started, there's so much more to do, and therefore we have to keep growing. Whereas an Esav approach is, no, I've done my bit, I keep mitzvahs, I learn Torah, but that's an Esav perspective to say I've arrived, I'm done, I'm complete. I don't have any more room or no necessity to grow. Now, the truth is that this is beruchnis, this is spiritually speaking. We know that in Gashmias, it's the other way around. In Gashmias, physical stuff, what do we find? We find by Yaakov that when he sent a message to Esav, he said, Yeshli koil, I have everything. What does that mean, I have everything? Everything that I have, that's enough. I don't need any more. Esav, on the other hand, we know, said the expression, is the famous Chazal, he said, Yeshli rov, I have a lot, but not koil. Because even despite the gashmis, the physical possessions and the physical success I have, I'm never happy, I always want more. So here we have two different character traits, and it depends when you use them. And it goes hand in hand. When a person is dissatisfied spiritually and he always wants to grow, his focus is on the spiritual. He doesn't really focus so much on the physical, and therefore the physical, he's satisfied with what he has, he's not obsessed, and he's not always running after more physical success. On the other hand, when a person is obsessed with the physical success and he always wants more and he's always missing, as the Gemara says, someone who has 100 wants 200, someone who has 200 wants 400, he's just never ever satisfied physically, then that becomes his obsession. And then of course, then in the world of the spiritual, he's happy with what he does, and that's enough, and now let me move my focus back to the physical success and put all my efforts in that realm. So that is the difference between Yaakov and Esav. So the pasuk is telling us, if you serve Hashem in a way of Eikev, which means that you always think you just begun, it's just the heel, you haven't even climbed yet at all, and therefore you always want to be trying to grow more, to do more, to learn more, to be more involved in a mitzvah. That's your life's mission, to continuously grow in Avodas Hashem, in the service of Hashem. Hashem says, if you serve Hashem that way, that's where the reward will come, because that's the ultimate way to serve Hashem in a way of Yaakov, which then will mean that when it comes to your physical success, you will say, I have everything, I don't need more. Whereas the approach of Esav is that in the spiritual is also, it's all done already, I've arrived, but in the realm of Gashmias and physical, I want a lot more. Which Sarah Lafim says, then explains the Medrash. The Medrash says that when Rivka was pregnant with Yaakov and Esav, Vayishroitzatzu habonim bekirba, the children were struggling, the twins were struggling within her. And Chazal explained to us, the Yalkut Shimoini, Rashi brings it down, that they were having an argument. Yaakov and Esav were having an argument about the inheritance of the two worlds. And Chazal tell us in the Medrash that they came to the conclusion that the physical world, Olam Hazeh, this world, will go to Esav. Olam haba, the world to come, the spiritual world, will go to Yaakov. And of course, the Mefarshim ask, if that's the case, how are we allowed to use this world? We do business, we earn money, we eat, we do take part in this world. How is it mutter? How are we Jews allowed to benefit from this world when really that's the world that we agreed will belong to Esav? What does this mean? But according to this pshat, it's understood. Of course, everyone can have both worlds. Esav can have the spiritual, we can have the physical. That's not the machloikas. Machloikas is what's going to be the primary focus. Yaakov chose olam haba, meaning spirituality. That in spirituality he would never be satisfied. Always wants to grow. Esav chose olam hazeh, this world, that in ruchnis, in spiritual, he always be satisfied, but not in this world. So of course we're allowed to use this world. We have to use this world. We're supposed to work and serve Hashem within this world. But in terms of physical success, we're supposed to be happy with our lot and not pursue unlimited pursuit of being obsessed with being successful in this world, in the physical, because that's the midah, that belongs to Esav, not to Yaakov. And that explains how the machloikas went, and explains this pasuk also, Eikev tishmun, if you serve Hashem in a way of Eikev, that you're never satisfied, you will be then rewarded with this amazing reward. Have a wonderful day and a very good Shabbos.